James, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hello, I'm James. I work Tier 1 support in the IVC for UEN, and I am here to support the board meeting today.
Hey, thanks so much, James. Lisa?
Lisa Kuhn, and I'm the CFO for UETN and UIT.
Denise?
Denise Elwood, I'm just admin for everybody.
Well, we sure appreciate you and all the work that you do to help us.
Well, thank you.
Eric?
Eric Hall, Utah State University CIO here.
Awesome. Kara?
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Excellent. I'm Kara Rothman. I'm the director of the Utah State Library.
Okay. Sarah?
Sarah Bauman, Director of Utah Telehealth Network.
Awesome. Michael?
Mike Shuping, I am the Director of Administration for UETN.
Okay. And it just blew up because it switched everybody's order. All right. So I think I've got it. So Spencer,
Spencer Jenkins, UETN.
Jen?
Jennifer Covington, Superintendent of Murray City School District.
Awesome. And then the other Jen.
Jen Gibbs, I'm the Associate Director of Strategic Communications for UETN, and I support board communications with Denise.
Awesome. Kurt?
I'm the CEO at King County Hospital in Kanab, and I represent the hospital telehealth side of things.
Okay. Justin?
Hey, I'm Justin Brooksby. I'm the Associate Director of Professional Development at UEN, and I'm here to support and structure with their presentation today. And then I've got an update with professional development for all of you as well.
Amanda?
Good morning. I'm Amanda Sessions. I am the Customer Success Manager on the higher ed side of the team here at Instructure.
Okay. Thank you. Kaylee?
I'm Kelly Cole, and I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives for UETN.
Awesome. Kendra?
Hi, I'm Kendra, and I am a Customer Success Manager along with Amanda for the higher ed side here at Instructure.
Andrew?
Hey, good morning. Andrew Keddington, Associate Director of Accounting and Finance with UETN.
Awesome. Leah?
Leah Voorhees, a Deputy Superintendent for the State Board of Education.
Rick?
Rick Gaisford, I'm the Education Technology Specialist at the Utah State Board of Education and also the Chair of the Education Advisory Council.
And Jacob?
I am Jacob Penovich. I am a Customer Success Manager at Instructure as well.
Jody?
Good morning, all. Jody Saylor. I'm also from Instructure. I am the Senior Director of Academic Strategy and Innovation, and also a longtime Utah educator.
Awesome. And then Casey?
I'm Casey Nuttall, Regional Director here at Instructure, focusing on our K-12 side.
And Greg?
Yeah, Greg Simpson. I am the account executive on the high ed side here at Instructure.
Awesome. Welcome. Jim?
Hello, I'm Jim Stewart. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for UETN.
Dave?
I'm Dave Long. I'm the Superintendent of Beaver County School District.
Awesome. Let's see here. Tim?
Hey, Tim Lovell. I'm the Director of Direct-to-Consumer Services for Intermountain Telehealth and representing the ambulatory side on the board.
And then Steve?
Steve S., CIO.
Is there anyone I missed? As I looked, it looked like I had everybody, but don't want to leave anybody out. I hope it's okay that I take a little prerogative here, but I just wanted to say thank you to UETN for the successful tech summit that just finished up at Farmington High School the last couple days. And I really appreciate the effort that the organization and the individuals put into hosting that and the great breakout sessions and the work that was done by the UETN staff in promoting that to the tech directors across the state and the tech specialists. It was a really good experience, and several of the sessions that I attended were very good in helping me as I direct services here in the Hughes region. So just thank you, and if you could pass that along, Spencer, to the team that organized that, I'd really appreciate it. We have a resolution, and this resolution is to recognize Superintendent Sid Dixon for her service to Utah education, and we've asked for David Long to read that resolution.
Okay, this is a resolution of gratitude. Whereas Dr. Sidney Dixon has served with distinction as the State Superintendent of Public Instruction for the state of Utah, demonstrating unwavering dedication to the advancement of education for all students. And whereas Dr. Dixon has been a steadfast advocate for the strategic integration of technology and telehealth services within Utah's educational landscape, recognizing their critical role in expanding access to learning opportunities and vital health resources. And whereas her visionary leadership and collective spirit have been instrumental in fostering a strong partnership between the Utah Education and Telehealth Network and the Utah State Board of Education, ensuring that schools across the state benefit from robust, reliable education resources and network infrastructure. Whereas in her position as Director of Teaching and Learning at the Utah State Office of Education, she served on the UEN steering committee and supported integration of the UEN website with state curriculum standards. And whereas Dr. Dixon thoughtfully appointed key individuals to serve on the UETN board, mentored numerous education leaders, and elevated the reputation of UETN with national groups such as the Council of Chief State School Officers. Whereas her commitment to innovation, equity, and student success has significantly enhanced the educational experience for countless learners, particularly through her support of digital learning initiatives and remote access solutions facilitated by UETN. And whereas throughout her tenure, Dr. Dixon has demonstrated unwavering optimism in the face of complex challenges, inspiring confidence and resilience across the educational community. Whereas her tireless efforts have strengthened the bonds between educational institutions and UEN, leveraging technology to bridge geographical divides and improve the well-being of Utah communities. Therefore, be it resolved that the board of the Utah Education and Telehealth Network, on behalf of UETN community, expresses its gratitude and deepest appreciation to Dr. Sidney Dixon for her exemplary service, her profound impact on education and telehealth in Utah, and her enduring partnership with UETN. Be it further resolved that this resolution be formally presented to Dr. Sidney Dixon as a token of our sincerest respect and admiration for her remarkable contributions, approved by the board of the Utah Education and Telehealth Network this 13th day of June, 2025.
Thank you, Superintendent Long, for presenting that to the board. I'd call for a motion to accept that letter.
So moved.
Dr. Hess makes this motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion to the motions? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting the resolution, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Seeing the vote is unanimous, we will ensure that this is given to Superintendent Dixon and express our thanks to her for her work. For any that are interested, there is an event on June 17th that is being hosted at 10 a.m. to I think 12 p.m. that if you would like to attend, we can get that information and maybe send it out to the board if you're interested in attending that event. We now will go into some board discussion. Justin Brooksby, the UEN Associate Director of Professional Development, will introduce his guests from Instructure, and they're here to share information about the statewide usage of the Canvas Learning Management System for K-12 and higher ed. So we'll turn the time over to you, Justin.
Thanks. First, I want to thank Instructure for putting this report together. It was a lot of work. Not sure it's something they've done before for so many accounts that they have. It's a lot. So we really appreciate that. This data will be important to have moving forward. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn the time over to Jacob. I think everyone's done an introduction in the beginning, but if Jacob wants to go into more detail, he can. And if there are any questions, put them in the chat. Either myself or someone from Instructure will be happy to answer your questions. So Jacob, I'll turn the time over to you. Are you leading again today, I'm assuming?
Yep, that would be great.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Justin. Awesome. Yeah, we are grateful to be here today. Let me go ahead and make sure I'm sharing the right screen. If somebody from the Instructure side would just give me a thumbs up to make sure I'm sharing the right slide. Okay, perfect. Then we will go ahead and dig in. I know we have just about 20 minutes, so we will try to do our very best to make the best of our time today. Because we have given introductions already, I won't go into too much detail, but we do want to make sure we address everybody that's here with us today. But again, diving on in, once again, thank you so much for having us here today. Just like Justin said, we have definitely taken some time to give you a detailed report that goes over statewide usage and the impact of Canvas in the state of Utah. I will be your presenter today alongside my colleague, Amanda Sessions. Both of us are senior customer success managers here at Instructure. Like I said, we won't spend too much time going into more detail with regard to who we are, but with both of us are locals. Personally, I am the CSM on the K-12 side of the house. I have spent a little over 8 years here at Instructure, the vast majority of that time working with Utah LEAs on the K-12 side of the house. That said, Amanda, I'll pass it over to you if there's anything else that you would like to add.
Jacob. So I am Amanda Sessions. I am on the higher education side along with my colleague, Kendra Bates. We're both customer success managers. I have been here at Instructure for about 6 years, working with specifically UEN for about a year now. I did graduate from the University of Utah, and I was an educator in Granite School District, so I'm very familiar with UEN, also being a local here in Utah for my entire education. Then we also have Greg and Casey joining us from our sales organization, and the wonderful Jody Saylor will also be joining and be able to help out with any questions or discussions that come up throughout the presentation. All right, so a little bit of background about what this report is that we provided. So it does contain both Canvas usage for all 104 K-12 districts, as well as charter schools, and 15 higher ed institutions. Each school has their own one-pager, and that is going to cover usage from April 2024 through April 2025. And it's going to be highlighting things like engagement trends, course activity, tool adoption. We also wanted to make sure that we start this report with a broader context about Utah's statewide implementation of Canvas and how it supports equity, continuity, and professional learning across the K through 20 space.
Perfect. And I want to take a minute and talk a bit about the executive summary. The executive summary at the beginning of this packet focuses on the how Utah has implemented Canvas at the statewide level through the longstanding partnership between UEN and Instructure. So it covers the systems, the support, and the collaboration that makes that possible, everything from the unified access and the infrastructure to the ongoing professional development. So you'll see case studies that show this approach. We have a case study from the higher ed side. Utah State University is featured here, and one from the K-12 side of the house, Davis School District, to really give you some examples of how that approach plays out in real schools and classrooms across the state. In addition to the how, the next page of that executive summary really emphasizes the why. why the statewide approach matters. Canvas truly does act as that consistent digital learning hub for all students, whether they're in 8th grade or in college, right? So Canvas really supports that equitable access, the continuity, and that professional growth. So here you'll see leaders from the State Board of Education also weigh in, underscoring the impact of the shared platform on long-term learning outcomes and community connection.
Awesome. So we are going to dive into those specific examples of those 2 schools that we have highlighted. But we did want to mention that in the packet is some guides on how to read this Canvas usage data. So these 2 pages are going to explain the dashboards and the specific criteria that we use to define activity so that you know exactly what you're looking at and you can interpret this data with confidence. There are some nuances that we'll touch on in these pages, but for the sake of the presentation today, we won't go through every single one of those. But we did want to make sure that you were aware that in this packet, you'll find examples of anything that you might want to consider, different gotchas that could be present in the data and things like that. The data that we're going to be looking at today is a standard example, but you'll find that it does apply to a vast majority of the one-pagers that are included in this report. So this first page is going to be a basic how to read the Canvas usage data. For the sake of this page, you want to ignore the red and blue lines at the top, and we're just going to focus on the blue bars. So these blue bars represent active courses in an institution in Canvas. And we do have some very specific criteria that we use to define what is an active course. And you can see that on the slide here, but it is at least 1 teacher enrolled with activity time, at least 3 students, again, with activity time. It has to have a defined term start or end date, and at least 4 unique users have to log into that course within the current month. So it might not always reflect exactly the number of courses that are present in Canvas, but as long as they meet this criteria, they would be considered active and be reflected in those blue bars. Now looking at the next one where we actually do want to look at the red and blue lines across the top. This is going to give you an overview of how each LEA is using Canvas by seeing an overall usage of content and activities in their courses. As customer success managers, we look for high usage of both content and activities, but of course consistency as well so that we can see it's being used in a consistent manner across time. We also want to highlight that the use of activities is really useful in seeing how Canvas is being used in an interactive way and not just as a file repository. So that's why we highlight both content and activities, and that activities line, which is the blue one across the top, really helps to show what level of interaction is actually being applied in these Canvas courses. You'll also be able to take a little bit of a deeper look into both versions of content and activities. So when we're talking about content, we're specifically talking about pages, files, and modules. Now, each LEA and each institution might have a different definition of what they consider to be best practice. But here at Instructure, we encourage teachers to design their courses using modules to ensure that they're making use of powerful organizational features and settings that are available. If teachers across the institution follow this, it does provide a way for students to have consistent access to content. So we typically like to see that modules is one of the leaders in this graph, but it's also helpful to see both files and pages as well. We can also drill down into the specific activities. So when we're talking about activities, these are those interactive resources, things like assignments, quizzes, and discussions. An important call out here is if you are looking at quizzes, this is only going to be classic quizzes that are used in Canvas. If institutions are using new quizzes, which is our newer quizzing tool, that is going to be reflected within assignments because it is an LTI. So your quizzing data could be a little bit skewed, but by looking at a combination of both assignments and quizzes, you'll be able to see those different levels of activities. And then the other one here is actual users. So we have pulled, again, usage from April 2024 to April 2025 so that you can see active users that are actually logging into the system. This green graph represents specifically students. So you're going to be able to see how many students are logging in each month. And again, to be considered an active user, they have to be enrolled in one of those active courses that we talked about a moment ago and logged in at least once in a given month. So that way you can easily see how many students are accessing Canvas over time. We do typically see this dip in the summer. That is very typical and expected. So that's nothing to worry about. And then we like to see that consistent line across the top, and that helps us see if we're seeing growth throughout a year and easily be able to track usage.
Perfect. And then I'll chime in here and provide a little bit more detail on what you'll see within the K-12 one-pagers when you're looking at the user usage data. In the K-12 one-pagers, we've added 2 additional data points for you to consider when you're looking at the number of active users. What we have done using the publicly available data provided by USBE on the page that we have linked here, that page is also included in the one pager, so you'll be able to reference exactly what I'm referring to. But we have added the total number of students that are enrolled within the K-12 LEA and the total number of students in 7 through 12. This will inform you to compare the number of the total number of students in the secondary grades compared to the total number of active students that are logging into Canvas. When Justin and I were chatting about the structure of these one-pagers, we thought this would be wise, knowing that for the vast majority of K-12 districts in the state, there are more secondary students using Canvas than elementary. If you were present at the advisory council meeting, you know we had a detailed conversation about how we can increase adoption of Canvas in the elementary sphere. But for the sake of this conversation and for the sake of these one-pagers, knowing that secondary usage tends to be higher, we did want to give you that opportunity to compare, right, the total number of students in those secondary grades to the total number of active students logging into Canvas. So when you're looking at your one-pager, if you are a K-12 institution, you'll have a couple of additional metrics to look at when you're taking a look at the total number of active users. That being said, I added a small note here. I know that not every K-12 institution in the state serves grades K through 12. So if you are potentially a high school, or you're only serving secondary grades or only serving primary, those metrics will vary, right? Those will reflect the type of students you serve. So wanted to throw that out there. You will have a couple of extra data points for you to review when you're looking at your one-pager.
Awesome. On the higher ed side, we do use slightly different numbers. For most contracts, we are using full-time enrollment, or FTE, as reported to IPEDS for the actual contract purposes for number of users. However, on these reports, it's going to show the number of unique users, which is the total number of users who have logged in over the past 12 months. So a lot of times we do see in higher ed that the contract number is quite a bit lower because it is based on that FTE, and the number of actual users is a bit higher. That is very typical. That is nothing to worry about since we are going off of FTE. That is not something that we are typically concerned with, but we want to show the actual number of unique users that are logging in each month, and then we can relate that back to FTE simply for contract purposes.
Awesome. Now, what both Amanda and I wanted to do was actually talk through an entire one-pager with the group today to give you an example of exactly how we would recommend you look through the one-pager when you get the chance to do so independently. That said, Superintendent Long, I'm grateful that you're here so you can take a look at the fantastic things that Beaver County School District has been doing. We have picked Beaver County as the K-12 example that we will be talking through today. That being said, unless you have supervision, I am jealous first and foremost, but I cannot expect you to be able to read these numbers with the one-pager image being so small in this slide deck. So I have made a note of some of the specific numbers. I will be reading those off to you. But again, I wanted to call out some of the trends that are included in this one-pager, and again, give you some insight on how we would recommend you take a look at this one-pager when you're doing so independently. But I'll work through this top to bottom. Again, each one-pager starts with your active user overview, giving you insight into the total number of students that are logging in month by month from April of 2024 through April of 2025. Right off the bat, giving you some insight on how we look at this as customer success managers, we really look for consistency. Of course, growth could be one thing to be looking for, but at this point in time, thinking of what the current landscape is, consistency is key. So to look at the active users for Beaver County, we are definitely seeing consistency. Of course, there are some small dips, but that is by no means something to be concerned about. Overall, there is definitely consistency. There were 794 active students at the end of April. You started the year in August at 751. So there is actually a bit of growth. There was a peak at 838 students in September, but in general, student usage stays between 700 and 800 students throughout the school year. And that does actually exceed the number of secondary students. As you can see here, we plugged in those numbers. You have based off of the numbers provided by USBE, right? The total number of students at the district came to 1,434. There were 677 students determined to be in grades 7 through 12. So those numbers could give you some context to work with when you're thinking about the students that are actively meeting that criteria for active users. But again, from my perspective as a CSM, knowing that there is such consistency, that is exactly what we're hoping to see when it comes to active users. Then if we move down and look at the content and activity overview, I will point out at the end of April, you had 151 courses that met that criteria of being active. There's a very slight decrease since the end of 2024. As you can see there, those bars were a little bit higher compared to April of 2024, but that is very minimal. And the usage of active courses did stay very consistent throughout the school year. There was consistently 80% of those about 150 active courses that were using modules. If we take a look at the content detail, if we break down these content and activity lines, which were also very consistent and very high. Repeating myself once more, about 80% of those 150 active courses were meeting this module line that I'm pointing out here. And consistently, about 80% of those active courses were meeting this assignments line as well, which shows me the implementation of best practices of modules, or let me try that one more time. Implementation of the best practice of modules being used at Beaver County, and the engagement of Canvas is very, very high at Beaver County as well. So both of these graphs were an A+ for me, exactly what I would hope to see. The last thing that I'll point out here in the interest of time to make sure Amanda has a chance to read through hers as well, and also give everybody the chance to ask questions. The top LTIs that are used at the district are listed here as well. In terms of how we gathered LTI usage, we referenced the total number of launches within an instance. So the total number of launches by the LTIs in an instance, that's how we determine the top 5, right? So for Beaver County, Google Assignments is the top LTI that was used. You'll find that is very common for K-12 districts across the state. Those Google tools are very popular. Cengage, Edpuzzle, those are 2 others that are factored in here and also very common across the state. So Superintendent Long, again, Beaver County, excellent work. And I hope that provides some clarity on how I'd recommend each of you on the K-12 side take a look at your one-pager. Amanda, I will go ahead and pass it to you.
Thank you. On the higher ed side, we're going to take a look at Utah State University. So as you're looking at the green across the top, we had just over 24,000 students that were active at the end of April. This is very consistent throughout the year. We actually had a slight increase from the beginning or from April of last year to this year. So that's always awesome to see. As we're looking at the course and activity data, we're looking for very similar things as K-12. We want to see high usage of activities. We do want to see high content as well, but again, so that we're not just using Canvas as a file repository, we really like to focus in on those activities. At the end of the year for Utah State, there was just under 3,800 active courses. And again, we did see very consistent usage, 70 to 80% of courses are using modules, very strong use of pages and files as well. And what's always great to see is an extraordinary use of assignments and discussions in those active courses, assignments being in the high 80s and discussions being in the high 70s. These are all of the things that, as Jacob mentioned, we as CSMs like to look for and highlight when we're working with different institutions. And then for the top LTIs, we pull it the exact same way as K-12. It is going to be based specifically on launches. These are very common in higher ed as well. So we have Kaltura, Proctorio, Vital Source, McGraw-Hill. These are all pretty common in the higher ed space, but it's always nice to see that what the institutions are purchasing and using as external tools are being used. So thank you again for your time and ongoing partnership with us. So we are so proud of the collaborative work that we've been able to do between UEN, Instructure, and educators across the state. You can always reach out to any of us if you do have specific questions or would like additional insights. But we would like to open this up at this point and see if there's any questions that we or our other colleagues here on the call could answer while we have this time together.
So I just had a quick question. I appreciate the
Yes.
highlight there, and I'm pleased to see those numbers. It matches up with what we track in our data on use of Canvas in the district. So high users there. I'm trying to square those numbers with what I'm seeing in the overall student numbers across the state use. It doesn't seem like a lot of people are following suit and using it at that level or a similar level.
Say Superintendent Long, I can certainly touch on why you may see some discrepancies. I can certainly take a deeper look offline and yeah, make sure that what I'm sharing here is accurate. But we do often see some discrepancies with what numbers we pull in these types of presentations compared to what you might see otherwise, because we are using such a unique set of requirements, right, to define what an active user is. We have some unique data dashboards internally that we're using to gather this data, right? So in order for a user to be considered active for these dashboards, they have to have been enrolled in one of those courses that is considered active as well. And they have to have logged in once within a current month. And so that definition doesn't always match up with the criteria used to gather the numbers for some other dashboards. So it's a long way of saying the criteria used to gather the data for the other dashboards you're looking at might differ. But if there's a specific dashboard or usage numbers you're looking at, I am more than happy to confirm what I'm telling you to make sure it's accurate.
Yeah, I'm really pleased, like I said, with the Beaver usage as a UEN board member. I'm looking at it and thinking, okay, are we getting the same bang for our buck everywhere? And of course, we can have conversations on how to do that better, but that's my hope, is that we'll get more usage everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you take a look at the actual packet, you will see that there is quite a bit of very high usage across the state as well. There, as I was putting together this packet, I was very impressed with just how many districts out there are doing such great work.
I was really pleased, Jacob, you did that for every district. They would have been jealous if I had a report and they didn't. So that's very much appreciated.
Absolutely. Yes. I was very impressed with all the work that's been done across the state.
I'm looking
well,
for
thank
any
you.
other raised hands. Does any other board member have a question that they would like to direct to Instructure? Seeing no hands or anyone speaking up, we'd like to thank you for joining our board meeting today and presenting this information. And we'll ensure that this information is sent out to school districts and the charter schools to be able, and higher ed also, to be able to look at their data and look for ways that they can improve usage and take advantage of this valuable tool.
Yeah, thanks to Instructure. This is a great engagement, and hopefully it's something, maybe not every year, but on a periodic basis, we can see some updates and see how this tracks over time. We know it's a lot of work, so thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you all once again for having us. Let us know if there's anything else that we can do. If there are any clarifying questions, we're always an email away. But thanks again for having us today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
All right, have a good one. So we're going to turn time over now to Finance Committee Chair Kurt Lovelace, and he's going to seek approval of the FY26 budget from the board.
Sorry, trying to unmute and read the email string at the same time. So, We have been meeting as a finance committee meeting, and as finance committee chair, working with Lisa Kuhn at UETN, the CFO at UETN. We would request that the board approve the fiscal year 26 budget as presented at the board meeting on April 29th. And so we would make that request. There is a the House yesterday, the House approved a White House rescission to the package to take back funds that were already allocated to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And should any federal cuts occur, the Finance Committee would reconvene and review the impact and recommend any appropriate adjustments to the budget. But at this time, we'd recommend that the budget be approved as presented.
Thanks for the, I'm reading that as a motion, Chair Lovelace. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Dr. Hess has provided a second. Any discussion to the motions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll call that vote unanimous, and we will move to the policy committee. And Eric, I believe you're the chair, correct? And we're going to have...
I'm filling in today.
Okay, so we're going to have Eric fill in, but you're not really filling in. Eric is going to speak for the policy committee and make a recommendation.
Thank you, Jason. I'll do a quick screen share. So instead of looking at my pretty face, you get to see James Davies' face here on here on the screen. Apologies, I've got to get my screen share right here. The policy committee recommends board approval of James Davey to represent the public media on the board through June 2029. He's the station manager at PBS Utah. Has been in that position for 5 years, but been working at PBS Utah for over 25. And with that, I'd ask for a motion to gain approval.
I'd make that motion.
Okay, motion made. Anybody would second that motion?
Okay.
Dr. Hess seconds. Any discussion to the motion?
He's a good man.
We'll look forward to working with James. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any against? That motion is unanimous, and we look forward to working with him and his addition to the board. Thanks for your work on that, Eric, and the policy committee. Okay, we're going to have a presentation now by Justin Brooksby on UEN professional development and digital teaching and learning in Utah. And we'll turn the time over to you, Justin, and look forward to your presentation.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks again for some more time. I'm going to share my screen with you, and I want to first show you a short YouTube clip of the impact of professional development in the state of Utah. So the clip I'm going to be sharing with you is from our recent 2025 Teacher of the Year in K-12, Sayre Posey. And let me get my screen shared, and we'll start with this. All right, can you all see this? Okay.
I had just taken a digital story class with
UEN, and that was the first course that kind of inspired me to get my ed tech endorsement. I never thought I would be somebody who feels excited and comfortable talking about technology in the classroom because of the lack of experience that I had with it. But through those classes, I was able to gain like practice and use tools and create assignments and like have a professor and also a cohort of classmates guiding me along that way, and seeing how other people and reading about how other people are using technology in their classroom was also really beneficial, because I was able to see how other social studies teachers did it, or how other teachers who have multilingual learners use technology in their classroom.
All right, so that's kind of the why we do what we do in professional development. I think we have a huge impact in the state, and I wanted to start with that because what I'm going to share with you is kind of the other end of that, and it's the numbers. It seems like we're sharing a lot of statistics with you today, and I think that's also important because it helps us keep ourselves honest about the work we're doing from kind of a number side, quantitative side. So what I'm going to do is share what I've been working on about the last 6 months. And if you're familiar with what we've been doing at UEN, we've been putting together a service catalog. And what I wanted to do was to align all the services that professional development provides in that service catalog to some statistical information. So we're almost there in getting everything done and making sure it aligns. And so that's what I'm going to share with you. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chats. Or just speak up and let me know. So a few things that we do. One of the things that we provide are online courses to educators. Recently, we just revamped and created a whole new style and standards for our courses and how we design those and provide them to educators. Another big change we made is we made all of our courses self-paced courses. And the reason why we did this is because it works really well with our educators' schedules, and they tended to have higher enrollments and higher completions in those types of courses. So that's one of the big changes that we have made. A lot of these courses we've been working on revamping, and there's several new ones, and not all of them came online in January when we typically, well, when we were trying to make them all available. So some of them here have dash marks or have a slow start to getting enrollment. But some of the things we're tracking is our course enrollment, and we can see that in this chart and graph for each month, how many new educators we have enrolling. And then this chart down the bottom is we're tracking our course completions. And a couple of our goals this year is to increase our course enrollment and increase our course completions. So, for example, with course enrollment, we've been personalizing the courses and personalizing our catalog a little bit more. We have been working with Jamie to do some social media campaigns right during the summer, and we actually have seen a huge increase in our course enrollments. Our second thing to completing this goal with course completions is making more contact with our students, evaluating their progress in their courses, making sure there's good communication methods between our instructors and our students taking our courses. Something we also measure and have taken pride in this, we just barely revamped our course feedback systems, the types of questions that we get. So there's not a huge number here, but these are kind of the feedback we get from our courses, 5 being those that are completely satisfied with the course, and 1 being not satisfied at all. So this has always been pretty high for our professional development team. We get very good feedback on our courses and our instructors. So that's the first type of statistic I wanted to share with you. And then, as in that video, you noticed that Sarah was talking about an ed tech endorsement. This is something that we work with the Utah State Board of Education on. We provide kind of our own path for educators that either don't have options at their district or their charter school. They want to get a technology endorsement. We provide it to them. And something that we've started to do, I've put kind of an academic advisor position in charge of helping our students along in this endorsement. We almost have 1,000 teachers in our endorsement program right now, which is a pretty significant number. If you look back, maybe 10 years ago, it was like kind of dripping in with very few educators doing it. It's a big thing, and educators want to do this. So we see we have a huge number enrolled in the program, but one of the difficulties we have is getting our participants to progress through them program. You can see there's quite a few that are still stuck in our orientation course and quite a few that are still stuck in our foundations course. One of the things we might have identified is lots of times we have observers that just want to go in there and look at the program and not really participate in it. But we are taking measures, first of all, to find out through surveys why there's not a ton of progress from our foundations course to our following courses. So that's another one of the things we'll be working on this year. But you can see we've also been tracking the number of completions we've had over the years since 2016. When we have about 8 per year, and we have 24 this year so far. So we're doing well. And we also keep track when we can, when we're provided email addresses from the teachers of which districts they are from who are completing our endorsements program. So you can see probably most likely the larger districts have more teachers going through this. The 205 really on this type of graph is just showing a total of LEAs that don't fit into this top section. So these are a lot of the smaller LEAs and charter schools that are completing it. But right now we have a list of every person who's progressing through this. We have a plan to communicate and talk with each educator that's working on the endorsement and help them finish the EdTech endorsement. So it's another one of our goals for this year. Another type of thing we do at UEN is we often get contacted by schools, LEAs, higher ed as well, but mostly with K-12 to go to their schools and do presentations. This could either be a statewide conference, a regional conference, it could be a district thing, or just even a school thing where the principal contacts us. We've been keeping track of this for a while, but I only keep on this dashboard this year and the last 3 years. So every request we have that comes into this list where we make assignments out to all of our staff. This is how we schedule everything. And we have this great dashboard that puts all this information to a readable format for us. So last year, I can see when our busy months are in doing work out in the state, which June is typically very busy, and April and May are kind of our less busy months. And I can compare that to what we're doing this year. I can see our attendance numbers last year was pretty record breaking on the number of educators that attended our classes, over 11,000. This year at 3,500, we're probably going to be close to the 2023 numbers this year. This also shows the number of events. So, we may have one event that has 10 educators. We may have an event that has 100 educators. This is more of a level playing field, so I can see how many different events we're doing in the year. We're at about 200, which is pretty good. We're having a great year. And I also track the number of hours we're spending. So the session could be 1 hour, it could be 2 hours or 3. This also helps us kind of have another measurement. We also track by tech tools that we're presenting on. It could be multiple in one session, but we kind of keep track of that here. And then we also measure against the state competencies that we're looking for in the ed tech world, and we measure our sessions on what their alignment with these competencies are. So you can see that the majority of them are either kind of the 21st century learners bucket or our foundation of design and pedagogy. Those are kind of basic classes, and these are kind of student interaction and really getting students engaged. So our smaller pieces are professional growth and leadership and digital and info literacy. So this graph really helps us keep track of what we're doing throughout the state. Another big thing that we do is we coordinate during the school year a C Forum meeting. This has been going on for many, many years. Both K-12 and higher ed are invited to this. We do have a lot of higher ed organizations that help us, and even like Utah Valley University, for example, has even taken a more active role and hosted us a few times. But what I'll do here with each C forum is I track who the host district was. They're kind of in charge of the agenda. And then I look at how many people were attending in person and online and have a total. And then I count the number of LEAs that are attending and then have a brief summary of what was discussed. This helps me measure the impact of these meetings across the state. And I've been doing this since last year. And you can see we go anywhere from Paiute and have a smaller number of 21 to like an Alpine school district who takes us over to Adobe and we have 150 people attend. So we try to make sure that we are traveling throughout the state and seeing what all of our different LAs are doing throughout the states. So really enjoy this program and the connections that we make and the effect that it's having on educators. Then the last thing I want to share with you is a survey I just sent out about this C Forum group. First of all, I wanted to know, are we keeping with the mission of this group? The majority of people saying that we are keeping with the mission. We are looking at maybe switching the meeting times a little bit, so I got some information on that. Surveying people what they like about this C Forum group. You'll hear lots of times they like the collaborative approach. It's transformational for them, the experience, the connections that they make. Those are things that we hear a lot about. I asked them on ways that we could improve. So a few things on that, or some people are saying not really anything. And then additional comments that we have from them. So this is a great thing that we spend a good amount of time and resources across the state. But I do think that it's paying off based on the responses that we get back from everyone. So that covers a lot of the services that the professional development team provides. I feel it's important to measure all those things, and I just want to give you all a quick preview of those types of things we measure in professional development. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those. If not, I'll turn the time back over to Jason.
Thanks, Justin. Do we have any questions from? Okay, seeing that there aren't any, Justin, I do have one.
Okay.
Has there been a look at maybe the correlation between the districts or the highest? Because when I was looking at that sheet, Severe School District, which is one of your smaller school, it's a medium-sized, but only 4,700 students. They have a high completion rate. But Alpine, Granite, those districts do too. Is there a correlation between maybe how those districts are using their DTL funds to encourage teachers to take those courses that could be maybe leveraged to the charters and to other LEAs?
Yeah, you're talking about the endorsement tracking numbers, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So a lot of those like Severe and some of those smaller LEAs, what they did is they offered stipends to their educators and they really pushed it. So they made it kind of a central component for their educators, offered stipends. Those numbers that are showing you is through since 2016. So I don't know if they're still doing that. It was big. It was big with them like prior to pandemic, I think 2018, 2019. They're making a huge push with that. So that's probably why like Severe's higher up in those numbers right now. I haven't seen, well, some larger districts do this, but that one in particular I know was offering some pretty good stipends. So that's a good carrot if anyone has those types of funds, but not usually available. And in addition to that, I would say that some of these districts have their own ed tech endorsement programs, and we don't track those. So, for example, Davis has a whole leading educator program that we kind of work with them. We provide some course materials, but they enhance it, and all of their stuff is done in person as well. And so we don't keep track of that. They're not part of our endorsement program, so they may have higher numbers that are not reflected in our numbers. So we encourage educators to do what their district offers. If they can't get into the program because there's limited numbers, or if their district doesn't have a program, then we encourage them to take UEN. So we're there to fill in the holes where the district or LEA can't provide. So that may also skew the numbers a bit.
Yeah, I
Jason.
think because the micro credentials now offer an endorsement for the ed tech too. So I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of avenues now for this. So yep.
Yeah.
I appreciate the information.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? We will go ahead and we will ask for a report from our UEN Advisory Council Chair, Rick Gaisford. He's going to give a report, and the UTN Advisory Council will not give a report because they haven't met since our last meeting, but they will be meeting on June 19th and give a report at our next board meeting. So we'll turn the time over to Rick Gaisford.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. And I'm going to be quite brief because what you have received today is what we received at the Advisory Council last week. And so we had the same report from Canvas Instruction, went into a little bit more, a little bit longer, maybe a little bit more in depth, a little bit more conversation. I think we were really interested as the advisory council in the engagement numbers, and we talked a little bit about that. I think as Jacob Penovich noted in his presentation, but talked about engagement, talked about particularly elementary usage of Canvas, and had some conversations around that as well. Typically, Canvas is most used in grades 7 through 12, but a number of districts are exploring more of their usage as using that as a resource in their elementary schools as well. And there's tools and resources to help make that a uh, not it's a different so it has a different look on it, but it has all the functionality of Canvas in the back. On the back side just looks different. And that, so we talked a little bit about that, and then we had a presentation by Justin again on professional learning. And I think these are all really important right now because I've had a number of conversations in the last week or so regarding screen time and student usage of technology, and are they just sitting in front of computers all day long? And I think that these reports are really, really helpful. As I listened to the Canvas report again today and listened to Justin, to be able to highlight what we are trying to do to be able to help teachers to be able to better use technology. I think what you see, particularly from the Canvas report and what we noted last week when we were meeting as the advisory council, is that the top things that are being used, the Google Classroom, the Google Docs, it's not just, teachers are not just assigning kids to be in a software program where they're spending hours and hours and hours in front of a screen, but rather they're really doing interactive things with the students. They're delivering the curriculum that they are teaching and using Canvas as as a method to be able to deliver those instructional materials, to be able to interact with students, to be able to let students interact with each other, and using so many of the different kinds of tools and that are available through that can be used through Canvas and that. And they're also being able to use Canvas to, not just send kids out, into the wild internet, but being able to really keep them focused on the kinds of things that are necessary, So, I mean, these were all the kinds of things that we were talking about. And I think that these are having this report and then having the numbers that Justin shared, I think are really important for me, and, in my work, but I think also being able to have those one pagers, when questions are asked, why are you using technology in that, or how are you using technology to be able to pull out that one pager and say, this is how we're just using Canvas, the kinds of thing, and the engagement factor that we're having. These are the kinds of tools and resources that are being used, so that they can see that we're trying to do the kinds of things that would mirror best practices and that you would see anywhere. So those were our reports that we received and you have received. So I won't spend any more time going over those, but I think that they were very valuable, and the advisory council was very pleased with them and the work that is being done.
Well, thanks, Chair Gaisford, for that report. Are there any questions from the board? I'm not seeing any, but I thought it was a great meeting. I was there, and I thought the discussion was very, very good within structure towards elementary, and some work that could be done there to enhance that in our lower grades, as our partnership with.
One final thing, Jason, would be that just to the board, thank you for helping us to reconstitute the advisory council. Our participation has been much higher, and we've had quorums at all of our meetings this year so far, which it's really great to be able to see the increased interaction at the advisory council level. So.
Yep, and I think that falls a little bit, that falls a lot on your leadership of that council too, Rick. So thank you so much. Well, we will move now to our executive director report and give the time to Director Jenkins.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair Straight. Just a few brief things to cover, and luckily you don't have to put up with my slides today. So, and Jason, just to your comment at the top of the hour, just wrapped up this week, the 25th anniversary of the Tech Summit. Very well attended. It was at a newer venue from the past several years at Farmington High School, which is an absolutely beautiful facility. It's a pretty amazing building, but very well attended. I think we had over 360 people attending and over 30 vendors. A lot of good interactions, a lot of great presentations. I thought it was a good sort of user conference for our organization, but well done by a lot of our staff who put in a lot of hours that don't get a lot of visible credit, particularly Jill and Jolene and Jim's group. If they weren't at the helm, I'm not sure this conference would happen. I'll do credit to everybody else, but the two of them do extraordinary amounts of work, and I thought it was very successful. So a couple other things just to note. Kurt mentioned the vote yesterday on Corporation of Public Broadcasting funding. Just to give a little bit of background of what we're watching there, the House voted on this rescission proposal from the White House. It now goes to the Senate. It's a simple majority vote. They have until July 18th to act on that rescission proposal. Just so you know, that's about 8% of our budget, the funding we receive from Corporation of Public Broadcasting in terms of revenue. And so we are watching that closely. The other, just a couple of notes to look forward to the August meeting of the board. We will have at least a draft proposal for our legislative priorities for 2026, just to be in line with the governor's schedule going into the fall. I'm sure a lot of you are facing the same kinds of thoughts and plans for your organizations and boards. The other thing, and having a brief conversation with Chair Baum, Christina Baum, she mentioned the desire to have an in-person retreat either this fall, the October meeting, or possibly December, or maybe even January. But just something to put on your radar that in the coming weeks, we hope to get something on the calendar to do something in person in a place that's somewhat central for everybody, but it might be a timely opportunity now that over the past year, as a lot of our board membership has turned over, and by that time I hope there's a certain level of comfort and some opportunities to talk about some key topics, anything from security to software licensing to innovations in telehealth. There's a lot that we feel like the board could really take some deeper dives on. So hopefully it'd be a nice opportunity. But with that, that's really all I had in terms of a report. It's a little bit of a lighter meeting, and I guess as we head into summer, but happy to discuss anything, take any questions. But thank you.
Spencer, how does our congressional delegation come down on the CPB action?
Currently, they support the rescission, and the House delegation voted in support of it.
Both senators too.
As it sounds right now, it sounds like that's where they're headed. And I think you'll see that you could see the stories. This was the CPB portion, the 1.1 billion was a small piece of the broader 9.8, I think it was, that was a lot of international aid programs. And as you might imagine, that's kind of the bigger narrative that was talked about as it was before the House yesterday.
And I guess the other question, why just a majority vote and not a 2/3?
That's the procedure involved with the rescission. So this budget was approved in March, and then I guess it was May when the White House proposed this clawback provision, and the action only requires a 50% vote in both houses. They have 45 days to act on the proposal once they receive it. So.
I guess there's nothing we can do about it. Just wait and see.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's out of $1.1 billion, we're kind of a small player in all of this. As you know, as you might well imagine, our partner organization here in the building, KUED, this is a big deal for them. And you think of all the public broadcasting that occurs throughout the country, this is a very big, if it goes through, this would be a big change from what has been decades of government support for public broadcast.
Well, we'll just hope that somebody wise speaks up and speaks against it. But we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, it's a tough. The political calculations are tough to read. So
that report, we sure appreciate it, and we appreciate the efforts of your leadership team and everything. And are there any other questions for Director Jenkins? Okay, if not, we would just ask each board member to review the information and share information about UEN's productions and presence in the community with your stakeholders. There's a whole list of recent productions, upcoming events, and recent events with information that you can share and use for your prospective contacts, and we would ask that you do that. Then our next meeting, we're looking at August 8th and then October 10th and then December 12th. And please add those to your calendars. And then we are, as Director Jenkins said, we are looking at having an in-person retreat where we can meet together in person as a board. And with that, I would call for a motion to adjourn.
Jason, not yet. Please,
Oh,
could you go
not
back
yet?
and approve the minutes? No, you
Oh,
skipped right
did I
over
miss
the
the
minutes.
minutes?
I would appreciate it.
Did I miss? Was that at the top?
Yep,
Man, I am sorry. I
that's
missed that.
okay. I was going to catch you.
I usually go by consent agenda, and my board will do it, and so I apologize.
That's all right.
I should have caught that. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. We'll go with Tim this time, Dr. Hess, if that's okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Denise,
you.
thank you for catching that and
Sure.
calling that to my attention. I had missed that on the agenda, so I
It's
apologize.
okay.
All right, I'll now look for a motion to adjourn.
Oh, everybody wants to stay.
Everybody
So
wants-
moved. I moved.
Okay, so moved,
Second.
non-debatable, all in favor?
Bye.
Bye.
All righty, thank you so much, and all of you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, Jason.
Hey, have a great weekend. We'll see you.
Smooth. Yeah, you too.